Good morning, everyone. I'm Charles Gibson in Atlanta, where this morning a pre-convention summit between Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson is set for this morning.
And I'm Joan Lennon. Also in the news, Iran has just announced that it will accept a UN ceasefire resolution in its war with Iraq. Spencer.
Joan, powerful thunderstorms produced damaging winds that ripped through the northeastern and mid-Atlantic states yesterday. Wind gusts were near hurricane force.
Convention City, and this week it is a hotbed of Democrats here. Democrats everywhere. You look, you find them.
It's also hot down here, I'll tell you. We are in the Hyatt Regency here in downtown Atlanta. This is the granddaddy of all of the atrium hotels, the very first one.
Yep. First one built 21 years ago, and we're going to be here because this is the Michael Dukakis headquarters hotel.
That's right.
And our first guest this morning will be the two people probably most important in this city, Michael Dukakis and Kitty Dukakis, are going to be with us. I had a chance to sit down, talk with them last night, very relaxed conversation, and you will see that in this half hour. This is Michael Dukakis' convention. It is going to nominate him for the presidency of the United States. It will choose his candidate to be vice president. It will ratify his platform. It is really his convention. But he has twice as many delegates as anybody else, more than twice as many, but a lot of people feel that in some respects Jesse Jackson has upstaged him in the early maneuvering at this convention, the pre-convention maneuvering. The two of them are going to sit down, try to work it out, get some sense of peace this morning, and we'll be talking about that. But in this half hour, our convention with or our conversation at the convention with Michael Dukakis and Kitty Dukakis.
And two other men who also really have their hands full this week, and they're two of our hosts. We will be talking with Democratic National Chairman Paul Kirk, and also with Atlanta's mayor, it's catchy, Andrew Young. And then a little later on, Art for Politics' Sake, Atlanta's own Pulitzer Prize-winning political cartoonist Doug Marlette, and he's got some great things. Right now, Forrest Sawyer is also down here in Atlanta with us. Forrest, you have the news for us?
Good morning, Joan. I certainly do. While you're over at the hotel, I am here in the convention hall where they managed to make all the preparations that they need. The cameras are ready, the lights are up, and behind me is what's being called the podium that ate the convention hall. It's very big. But they're focusing actually on Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson outside the hall, hoping that some breakthroughs today will be made. The two leaders expected to meet this morning before the opening of the 40th Democratic National Convention here in Atlanta. Both camps are reporting some progress after a series of weekend negotiations. Jackson still demanding a larger role in the party and the campaign. Dukakis says he needs Jackson's support, but not at any cost. We have two reports. The first from Joe Bergantino.
In Atlanta last night, Michael Dukakis had Jesse, not Georgia, on his mind.
And we're going to come out of this convention a united party, an inspired party, a party that's ready to go to work and win in November.
But the wild card is still Jesse Jackson. For the past 2 days, there's been a flurry of intense negotiations between the Jackson and Dukakis camps over what role Jackson will play in the fall campaign and beyond. But so far, no resolution.
Certainly, we feel strongly that the progressive forces within the Democratic Party, who are now under the undisputed leadership of Jesse Jackson, need to be well represented in the fall campaign.
We are hopeful of working out a plan that would involve everyone in our general election effort.
But there is frustration building in the Dukakis campaign. You can hear it from the governor himself.
I want to get on with the campaign. I want to get on with his role in the campaign. It's an important one.
But will Dukakis agree to what Jackson calls a full partnership in the campaign?
Every team has to have a quarterback. That's the nominee. You can't have two quarterbacks.
So on this opening day of the Democratic National Convention, Michael Dukakis finds himself in the position of having to negotiate for what he believes he has rightfully earned, a peaceful convention that would coronate him the party's nominee. Joe Bergantino, ABC News, Atlanta.
This is Mike Von Fremd. Jackson's central demand in the negotiations is shared responsibility. He has not been specific as to exactly what that means, but yesterday Jackson said it must be something more than a minor role.
Any role I would accept be commensurate with my responsibility. And of course, that has to be defined. The expectations for my work are great.
If you think that sounds like Jackson wants a paid position and title, the candidate says you're wrong.
If I asked for a salary, it would cheapen our work. If I ask for a title, it would diminish the stature you've given our campaign. We're talking about building a coalition.
Jackson claims his minority platform planks would make America better. But on issues such as raising taxes for the wealthy and freezing defense spending, Jackson and Dukakis are far apart. Jackson feels that after winning more than 7 million votes leading up to this convention, he deserves to be a major player. But Michael Dukakis' theme that there can be only one quarterback leaves Jackson with a major dilemma. Will he be able to play on anyone else's team? Mike Von Fremd, ABC News, Atlanta.
And ABC News correspondent Cokie Roberts joins us now. Cokie, you've been following the developments. Is there a deal that can come out of this morning's meeting between Dukakis and Jackson?
Oh, I think so. I don't think there's any question about that. I think there's a little nervousness going into the meeting about whether everybody's going to agree that the same thing was said coming out of it. But I think that at this point, all of this dissension is going to end, and there's going to be some sort of harmony here, because that's in everybody's interest.
Well, when you say there's a little tension that everybody may not say the same thing when they come out, is that a feeling in the Dukakis camp that they might have a loose cannon with Jackson? He'll say one thing in the meeting and then come out and say something else?
Well, there's always that concern, and there's also the concern of how you play it. Dukakis wants inside the meeting to be as conciliatory as possible, and then to come out of the meeting and be both conciliatory and tough, so that he doesn't look like he's caving to Jackson's demands. So I think it works both ways.
Well, Jackson has his own problems. He has supporters that he has to satisfy as well. If he comes out relatively empty-handed, he's got a problem.
That's right, but I don't think he's going to come out. He can characterize whether his hands are full or empty. And if he comes out and says, I've got a role in the campaign, I've got a role in this convention, and I'm going to go out and galvanize the troops, then that's a positive signal for the Democratic Party. If he does not, if he chooses to characterize it in a different way, that's a problem. But that's up to him.
When the dust is cleared, how much damage do you think will have been done by the brouhaha that started with a missed phone call from Dukakis to Jackson?
Well, it's got pluses and minuses. It's not just damage. There are a lot of people who are watching this and saying Dukakis is standing up to him. He's not caving into the special interest, the charge that was so effectively used against Walter Mondale. So I think that you can't really just call it damage. There's also been a positive side to this.
ABC News correspondent Cokie Roberts. Thank you, Cokie. The Atlanta police have been trying to prepare for virtually everything in terms of security, including the inevitable protest that we are going to see here. They have designated roped-off parking lots near the convention center as the official demonstration areas. Yesterday, a group of white supremacists had their march and rally cut short after they got into a scuffle with opponents of the Ku Klux Klan. Peter Jennings and David Brinkley are going to be heading up ABC's convention coverage. It begins at 9 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Tonight's broadcast includes the Democratic Party's keynote address. That will be delivered by Texas State Treasurer Ann Richards, and there will be a speech by former President Jimmy Carter. Now let's go to Paula Zahn in New York. We'll have a look at the rest of the news. Good morning, Paula.
Good morning, Forrest. Thank you. Good morning to you, everyone. Iran's news agency is reporting...
Good morning, Paula, and let's go right now to Spencer Christian, who is just a few blocks away from us here in downtown Atlanta, and he has a special convention workout. Good morning, Spencer.
Good morning, Joan. Well, you know, there's a lot of activity at any political convention, and I'm in one of the activity centers right now. This is the Downtown Athletic Club, where many of the politicians and celebrities here and media types come here to work out and build up their stamina for the long week ahead. So let's work our way into the weather right now and see what's going on, starting with the position of the jet stream, which has a rather summer-like flow, hot.
Joining us now are the two hosts of this year's Democratic Convention, Mayor of Atlanta, Andrew Young, and of course the Democratic National Chairman, Paul Kirk. You both have been working a very, very long time on this, I know. Your time has come. Is the hardest part behind you or yet to come?
Well, I think the hardest part is behind us. We've got a great, positive, constructive campaign. We've got a great host mayor who's put all the city together to support this convention. Now we're ready for a unifying, solid convention that can project our nominee and the ticket with the support of those who competed in this campaign, and we're ready to take charge of the economic future of this country and move on to a better America.
Well, part of that unifying is taking place this morning. You, of course, have been in contact with both the Dukakis and Jackson campaigns. The men are expected to meet this morning. What can you tell us about the meetings, about the negotiations, about what the expectations are?
Well, I think, first of all, the dealings between the campaigns from the very beginning. We've had credentials committee without a challenge, no rules committee fights, platform relationships that have been held without any discord. Now we get to the threshold of the keynote of the convention. The candidates talked last evening by phone. They'll be having breakfast together this morning, and I assume the staffs will continue to meet, and we will have all that we had hoped for in terms of a convention that will send a message to the American people. The Democrats are governing their own business, and they're prepared to govern the business of the American people.
How can Jackson, though, also get all that he has hoped for as far as defining his part in the campaign now?
Well, I think Governor Dukakis has said that Jesse Jackson is a key player on a very important team and a great moment in history for our country, and deserves an enormous amount of respect for his contribution to the primary campaign. He'll be a key player in the election as we push forward to elect the Dukakis-Benson ticket and let the Republicans go back to Kennebunkport.
Mayor Young, do you think that Jesse Jackson and his team have perhaps pushed too far to the point where they may have hurt the Democratic Party going into the convention? I guess there's that concern of whether people will sit out the election in November.
Well, first of all, nobody's going to sit out this election in November. This election is going to set America's course for the next century almost. And that's not something that anybody is going to sit out. We're probably going to have as large a turnout as we've ever had. I think what you're seeing is differences in tactical approaches, and I think those have to be reconciled. I don't think the differences are personal. I don't think the differences are racial. I think that there's just got to be some understanding of the approach to this election, and I think they ought to be able to do that.
The question, though, is who can take the whole country? You've got Benson, of course, perhaps taking Texas. You've got a Southern accent here on the convention. It's in Atlanta. You've got your keynote speaker. You've got the person nominating Dukakis. You've got a number of Southerners out there in the spotlight. But with all this, can it carry the Southern states?
Well, we've been carrying them the Senate elections. And whenever you take the South seriously, you can carry it. And I think this Dukakis-Benson ticket will take the South seriously.
What do you have to do right now? What does the Dukakis camp have to do now to unify and get over this whole Jackson issue and get people to a strong Democratic Party?
Well, I think, first of all, it's the candidate's message about relating to the working families of America. That's what the Jackson campaign stands for. That's what Vice President-to-be Benson has stood for through his public life. And it's expanding and including this electorate and galvanizing it for a national audience. It won't be just a regional campaign. We'll be competitive in the South. We won't take for granted a write-off any region. And I think Governor Dukakis has spoken to that forcefully. It's about taking charge of the economic future of America.
How about you? Dukakis has asked you to stay on. Of course, there are Jackson members who say that you've not been as neutral as you should be. Would you step aside if you thought that was the only way for party unity? Or?
Well, I haven't had any direct discussions. I think the thing that's important is not the future of Paul Kirk. The future of the working families of America is what I've been working for as chairman and what the candidates have been working for throughout this campaign. So I will do whatever it's decided is in the best interest of keeping unity and continuing this path for the agenda of working families.
Mayor Young, will the Dukakis-Benson ticket take Georgia?
The Dukakis-Benson ticket will take Georgia because Governor Joe Frank Harris and I, Speaker Murphy, all of us will be working for it. Sam Nunn and White Fowler. We're going to carry not only Georgia, we're going to carry this country. Watch.
Mayor Young, thank you very much. Paul Kirk, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
And we'll be back. Stay with us.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Charles Gibson in Atlanta this morning, where there is going to be a pre-convention summit between Jesse Jackson and Michael Dukakis to try to work out their differences.
And I'm Joan London. Also in the news, Iran has just announced that it will accept a UN ceasefire resolution in its war with Iraq. Spencer?
Joan, you think it's hot here in Atlanta, where yesterday's high reached a mere 95? On the West Coast, highs soared near the 110-degree mark.
Good morning again, everyone. in from the lobby of the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Atlanta. We're going to be here all week, along with the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of Democrats who have gathered in this city and made gridlock out of the city streets of Atlanta, I would mention.
And everybody's got a hat on. Buttons.
Yeah.
Buttons galore.
I love the fun stuff of the conventions. Everybody competes for the silliest buttons. We're going to have some of the silly convention souvenirs that are here. Already, I have found one. It's a very simple thing. It's a little key ring, says Democratic National Convention on it, but you press the back. Can you hear it?
Happy days. Happy days are here again.
And there is Democratic underwear and a lot of other stuff. We're going to have
Charlie will model later.
but no. But anyway, the Democratic Convention, of course, is here in Atlanta. Don't do that to me. Where we're going to be all week long. Opening gavel tonight, keynote speech by Ann Richards, speech by Jimmy Carter tonight. Tomorrow, of course, the platform. Wednesday night, Michael Dukakis will be nominated for the presidency of the United States. On Thursday, Lloyd Bentsen will be nominated for the vice presidency. Maybe a fight there. And then the acceptance speeches, of course, Thursday night. We'll be here for all of it.
And I've been out running around the city putting together a piece to give you a look at Atlanta and how all the delegates and visitors are seeing it. And also an actress who is very involved in convention politics, Margot Kidder, will be with us. Horace Sawyer is also right here in Atlanta over at the Omni Central. Horace, good morning.
Good morning, Joan. This, of course, is where everything will happen later tonight. It certainly feels like it's been a long time coming, but it's finally here. The Democratic National Convention begins in Atlanta tonight, amid signs that the two leading party figures, Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson, may finally be ready to resolve some of their differences and begin building a coalition. The candidates meeting this morning to discuss Jackson's demand for unprecedented concessions. Still, both candidates are saying they expect a unified convention. Ron Claiborne has more.
On the eve of the Democratic Convention, Michael Dukakis was still sending conflicting signals to Jesse Jackson.
Every team has to have a quarterback. That's the nominee. Can't have two quarterbacks. This is going to be very much a team effort in every sense of the word, and I hope and expect that he will be an important part of that team.
For his part, Jackson remained determined and defiant.
This is not a coronation. This is a convention.
Campaign advisors on both sides hope today's meeting between Dukakis and Jackson will break the impasse that has threatened to disrupt party unity.
There can be no final resolution until there is mutual trust and respect and a feeling of comfort, which can only grow from a face-to-face meeting.
Still unresolved are Jackson's role in Dukakis' fall campaign, whether he will allow his name to be placed in nomination for vice president, and about a dozen platform proposals that Jackson once adopted. On the streets of Atlanta, there was a different kind of clash yesterday. This one between a small group of Ku Klux Klansmen and neo-Nazis and hundreds of counter-demonstrators. The police intervened and broke it up. Late last night, Jesse Jackson was still behaving very much like an active presidential candidate, attending a rally at a downtown movie theater and vowing to press on, even in the face of Dukakis' inevitable triumph.
The highlights of tonight's opening session will be a speech by former President Jimmy Carter and a keynote address by Texas State Treasurer Ann Richards. While the theme of her speech will be the family, she's also expected to pay homage to Jesse Jackson. Ron Claiborne, ABC News, Atlanta.
Of course, the Jesse Jackson campaign is coming to one of the busiest cities in all of the country. Atlanta is the economic hub of the South. It is a city that has been growing for years, and it wants to grow a lot more. Welcome to the heart of the New South, Boomtown, USA, where they like to do business Southern style, but mostly they like to do business.
There's a kind of cordiality here and a civility. We'll compromise that civility if it means making a dollar.
There are shiny new buildings everywhere, with more on the way. Rows of big new houses, a new airport, the busiest in America, and a bewildering maze of highway construction built to handle the thickening traffic. And there's no slowing down.
We're always looking for the sort of the next world to conquer, the next business to get in here.
There are still traditions in Atlanta. You just have to look to find them. Deacon Burton's been serving his legendary fried chicken for 59 years.
I've been all over, and I don't find no place like Atlanta. Beautiful home, beautiful cars, and if my wife wasn't standing here, I'd say women.
Old-timers like Burton are getting harder to find. The rest of Atlanta is growing younger. Average age now, just 28.9 years old. There are more newcomers than natives now, too. All come looking for opportunity and a place to raise a family. Most of them weren't here for the civil rights revolution that brought a new balance of power. The city that was shaped by Martin Luther King now has his protege, Andy Young, as mayor, and has become a model of black prosperity.
We've got black political control of the city. We've got white economic control. And those two have to work together if the city is going to function.
And they'll have to work together to solve some tough new problems. Diminishing natural resources, protests over the disruptions caused by all this change, and a growing gap between the affluent and those left behind.
Those people who were poor 20 years ago remain poor today, and they live in a more hostile, grimmer, more difficult urban environment than they did 20 years ago.
For now, Atlanta will try to grow out of its problems, hoping the resources last and the wealth trickles down. And Atlantans will always be coming up with surprising new ideas.
We need an ocean, a bay, maybe a Golden Gate Bridge over there on International Boulevard, something like that.
One of the biggest problems here is imbalance. The greatest economic development has been in the mostly white north sections of the metro area. And if Atlanta is going to live up to its own proclamations, they're going to have to find a way to spread the wealth, the business boom that they're enjoying. Looking at highlights of today's convention calendar, Peter Jennings and
Joan in Atlanta, who's standing by live. Good morning, Joan.
Good morning, Paula. And right now we are going to go just a few blocks away from here where Spencer Christian is shaping up for the convention. Spencer?
You could say that, Joan. A lot of people behind me is shaping up right now here at the Downtown Athletic Club. And some of the political figures here for the convention come here to work out also. But right now, let's take a look at today's weather. Then we'll talk politics and workouts. The high temperatures today will be... I told you, it's not just the regular civilians who come here to work out. Some of the political figures come here to work out also. Joining me are Representative Tony Coelho from California, Representative Tom McMillan from Maryland. We interrupted Tom in the middle of his changing clothes to get ready for his workout. How do you find the time at a busy convention like this to squeeze in your workouts?
If you believe in it, you make the time. You just got to do it.
Yeah, I understand you were inactive, Tony, for what, 6 years or so?
6 years, yeah.
You just started working out how long?
About a year and a half ago.
Right. And Tom, of course, physical activity is nothing new to you. You played in the NBA for many years, and you've kept up the workouts.
It's a little hard to get the job done now, but I really enjoy working out. It makes me feel good, and it keeps me trimmed, so I'll keep doing it.
Do you feel that you perform any better on your jobs because of your workouts? Does it keep your mind sharper?
Oh, absolutely. The better shape you stay in, the better job you can do in your professional business. My business, any other business.
Still playing some hoops, Tom?
Once in a while. They don't let me down in the house gym very often, but I like to go down and
he cheats when he gets down there. He's too good. He's too
big enough that he doesn't have to cheat. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Get back to your workouts, and we'll see you later. Joan, I'll have more weather in the next half hour.
Spencer, thank you, guys. And we'll take a look back. Well, the Democratic National Convention is bringing about 35,000 people to Atlanta. It looks like a lot of them are right behind us right now, right down here in the lobby of the Hyatt Regency. This is, of course, the Dukakis Benson headquarters, and it is where Jackson and Dukakis are meeting this morning, having a little breakfast and hopefully ironing out their differences. About 5,000 of those 35,000 are delegates and their alternates. What do they do when they can get away from the convention hall? Well, they have a lot to see here in Atlanta.
Georgia. Georgia, the whole day through.
In these hazy days of summer, the melody fits. In July down here, it's the heat and the humidity. Atlantans don't seem to mind, though, in this city of 2.5 million people rising out of the thicket of Georgia pine, kudzu, and honeysuckle. It's the phoenix of the South, up from the ashes of Civil War and Reconstruction, pulled out of the backwater years of the Depression to become the jewel of the New South. Even before General Sherman rode through this area with his Union Army, Atlanta was a city of visitors, and it's no different today. This is the world's largest airport, the second busiest, and as the old saying goes, when you die, whether you go to heaven or hell, you have to pass through Atlanta.
Hello, Joan. Welcome to Atlanta.
Well, hi. And you never know what you're going to find here in Atlanta. Consider housing. Many homes left over from the Depression. There are poor black and poor white neighborhoods integrated in their similarity. Then in the Buckhead section, mansions of an Arab oilman's dream, and some are even owned by Arab oilmen. Between the extremes, housing of every description, much of it built on the battlefields of the Civil War. The memory of that war lives on at nearby Stone Mountain, largest above-ground granite rock in the world. On the mountainside, giant carvings of Confederate war heroes. Not far away, the Carter Presidential Center, site of the library, archives, and museum of the Jimmy Carter presidency. Downtown from there, another historic center, the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. The assassinated civil rights leader is buried here. Atlanta is a city of churches, 1,500 churches, all with music. Atlantans are proud of that, and they are proud of the new High Museum of Art. On a hot summer day, you can raft the Chattahoochee River through Atlanta, see the Atlanta Braves, or watch CNN. You can watch CNN anywhere, but the news network is headquartered here. When you're in Atlanta, you know you're in the South. By all the beautiful greenery, this city has more trees than any other in the country. You also know by the way people speak, and you know by the food they eat. It's not the South without biscuits in the morning. For a lot of people, fried chicken, too. Breakfast chicken and biscuits, part of a tradition at Deacon Lendell Burton's Cafe. Good food and prices. The teasing is free.
Give me $2. I lose money every time y'all come in here, but I appreciate you coming.
On Atlanta's outskirts, one of the more famous eateries in these parts, Aunt Fanny's Cabin. It's part of an old plantation, and there's a plantation feeling that will surprise most first-time visitors.
Howdy, folks. What would it be? All complete dinners, our famous fried chicken, $13.95. Our June Wine Smithfield ham, $14.95.
The food? Chicken and southern ham. That's the salty kind. The music? A mix of jazz and spiritual.
When I die,
At Chastain Park, there's a more classical mood, with champagne and caviar more likely than biscuits and gravy. The Atlanta Symphony performs here during the summer, and Atlantans either picnic it or they cater in. Even in the bleachers, they take their classics with Chardonnay and chicken. There aren't any bleachers here at Pano and Paul's. It's one of the highest-rated restaurants in the South, one of 5 owned by Pano Karatassos. He happens to be second cousin to Michael Dukakis, and you can bet he'll be busy this week. All of Atlanta will be busy as it gets a chance to show off to the 35,000 people down here for the convention. And Margot Kidder is here for the convention. We'll talk with her right after this. Well, Dukakis Benson, that's a hot ticket this week in Atlanta, but we've got some hot ticket items. You like this? They can applaud each other.
Put
Here,
one on the...
Jackson's got you.
Yes, he's got...
All right, there's all kinds of stuff.
There is
neat
neat stuff at the conventions, and we're going to be showing you the kind of stuff that people buy. They come here to nominate the President of the United States, and they buy the most ridiculous things when they're here.
Like this.
How about this hat?
Go ahead, Charlie. You can do it.
All right. There we go, right?
I love it. That's great.
Prepared all my life for this moment.
That's right. This is what you went to Princeton for.
You put that one on.
Right.
You put that one on.
This one, you like this?
The visor? There's the little ears that come out.
This
one,
you
it seems to me, could work at almost any convention.
Buy one hat, service to conventions.
Now somebody is going to wear this on the floor of the convention over the next few days.
Buttons there.
This person worked all year long to get here to put this on their head.
This is from the lingerie department. Donkeys on your seat. I know there's a joke there somewhere, but
yeah.
But we won't do it this morning. Mm-hmm. These are yuppie suspenders here. Vice presidential vote Democratic suspenders.
And everybody's favorite party animal here in Atlanta, of course.
There are a million T-shirts everywhere you look.
The buttons. Great buttons.
buttons.
Best button I've seen so far. for the Democrats. Republicans won't like this. A Dukakis in the White House is worth two in the bush.
All right, all right.
They're working on it. We'll find you more buttons as the week goes on. Actually, I've got a bunch here. Buttons that don't get used. Everybody prints them up in advance. How about a Dukakis blend button? That'll be a rarity someday.
One last thing, a paperweight. This is called dead weight.
A ballot box stuffed with Republicans, and they consider it a dead weight here in Atlanta.
Yes.
Obviously, equal time when we get to New Orleans.
Absolutely.
It is now 6 minutes before the hour. We'll be right back, and we'll have more of this stuff as the week goes on.
All right, thank you, Spencer. Before we leave, let's take a look at one measure of how convention politics have really changed. Take a look at the podium that was used by Franklin Roosevelt. This was in 1932. Now, 16 years later, in 1948, Harry Truman stood at this podium. In 1960, this was John F. Kennedy's podium. And here's what Lyndon Johnson stood at in 1964. Then Jimmy Carter tried this one on for size in 1980. However, in Atlanta, this year, the podium is being called the thing that ate Omni Center.
It is gigantic. It is huge. You will see Jimmy Carter behind it. You will see a keynote speaker, Ann Richards, behind it. Tomorrow, we hope to have the first sit-down interview with Lloyd Bentsen. We hope he'll be with us tomorrow. We'll be back in Atlanta. See you then.
Atlanta, where the drama of the Democratic National Convention is about to unfold. Good morning. This is Monday, July 18th, and I'm Kathleen Sullivan.
I'm Harry Smith. Welcome to Atlanta and CBS This Morning.
Well, good morning, Harry.
We've been talking about this for how many months now, and we're finally here.
Yeah, for some of the candidates, it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, at least.
Good morning, everyone. In just a couple minutes, we're going to have the latest on this morning's negotiations set about 8:30 Eastern Time between Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson. Supposedly, they're going to meet face-to-face this morning. Jesse Jackson called Michael Dukakis on the telephone last night, and in a moment, Harry's going to be talking with Michael Dukakis and his wife, Kitty, about that telephone conversation. And also, coming up this morning, Rosalind Carter is going to be joining us with her particular perspective of what comes about in this Democratic convention process.
Also coming up this morning, we're going to get Andy Rooney's unconventional views of the convention today and all week long. And we're going to be talking with or reporting on some of the leading citizens of Georgia, among them Hank Aaron, Ted Turner, and John Portman, all this morning. But right now, we want to go over to Charlie Osgood and the news this morning. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning, Harry and Kathleen. Good morning, everybody. The big wheels are turning here in Atlanta this morning. A Dukakis-Jackson summit meeting is taking place. And standing by with a live report is Bill Whitaker at Dukakis' hotel, the Hyatt Regency. Good morning, Bill.
Charlie, it's high political drama here in Atlanta. The principal actors are all here. The curtain goes up this evening. All that remains, and it's a big one, is for the script to be written. Now, Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson are supposed to get together this morning to talk about it, but right now, everything is still up in the air. Michael Dukakis got a taste of good old Southern hospitality last night. Top Georgia Democrats threw a glittering red, white, and blue reception for the Massachusetts governor and his chosen running mate, Lloyd Bentsen.
For the past 17 months, I've had Georgia on my mind.
Jesse Jackson was clearly on his mind, too. For almost a week now, Jackson has been complaining that Dukakis is sending out the wrong message if he truly wants a united party. Last night, Dukakis sent out a much more conciliatory message, saying he needs Jackson to win in November.
It's been a long marathon, and we've come a long, long way together. And now we're in that final stretch, those last miles.
Atlanta also welcomed Jesse Jackson. While Dukakis was sounding optimistic, Jackson was saying differences remain. The talks between the two camps, he said, were not going well. But he, too, holds out hope for a united party.
If our party is expanded, if people are included, we're going to be big enough and strong enough to win and to deserve to win.
Now, Jackson and Dukakis are scheduled to get together in about an hour and a half now. This will be the second time they've spoken since July 4th, and I'd say everyone here is hoping they can get this thing resolved. Charlie?
Bill, is it considered likely that they can resolve their differences, Dukakis and Jackson?
Well, Charlie, both parties are saying that it's in their best interest. It's in the party's best interest to get this worked out. They do have substantial differences, and they do have to sit down and talk. But they both want to walk out of here at the end of this convention with a united party. So they do have a lot at stake here, and they have a lot of reason to get this worked out.
Thank you, Bill Whitaker. Coming up on CBS this morning, we'll be talking live to Bert Lance and to Kitty and Michael Dukakis. All kinds of pressure groups are in town for demonstrations, and Atlanta police have already had a taste of conflict in the streets. Peter Van Sant covered that story.
No war! No crime! Hundreds of demonstrators waiting to confront a Ku Klux Klan march turned instead on Atlanta police, shouting insults and filling the streets with anger. Police then tried to push the mob out of the streets, and the confrontation worsened. About 1 mile away, Ku Klux Klan and white supremacist marchers were told that police couldn't guarantee their safety and that their parade permit was canceled.
They have simply revoked another one of our rights without any implication, without telling us, without asking us, without notifying us.
Despite losing their permit to march, some frustrated white supremacists went to the Omni anyway to speak to delegates. But they were attacked by opponents, and several fistfights broke out. The demonstrators had to flee. Some suffered minor injuries. Police formed a human wall, keeping all the demonstrators away from delegates. More than 24 other groups will be demonstrating in Atlanta this week, but police don't expect another violent confrontation. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Atlanta.
In a surprise change of policy.
Your heart out, still in California.
Thanks, Shirley. I want to get a check on the weather right now with Mark McEwen, who is at the Pullman Train Yard here in Atlanta. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning to you, Harry and Kathleen. Choo Choo Charlie was an engineer. You remember that one? Well, I'm an engineer as well. We're in the Pullman Yard here in DeKalb County, not named after Hale DeKalb, but named after someone else. We'll fill you in on that a little bit later on. Now, you know, Atlanta began as a train town. And Atlanta has had 3 names in its history. The first name was Terminus, because that means end of the line. It was the end of the line for the Georgia Railroad. Second name was Marthasville. Martha was a daughter of Georgia Governor Lumpkin, Lumpy to his friends. And Atlanta came into being, that name, in the middle of the 19th century. Georgia Railroad was completed in 1845 at a cost of $3,369,856.42. I would pay money to find out what the 42 cents bought back in those days. I'm sitting in an F7. This was built back in 1950. This baby's got 3 million miles on it, almost as many miles as I have on my car at home. But we'll be running you through the train yard today, showing you a little bit about this and telling you about the new Georgia Railroad and the spirit that it's bringing back to Atlanta here. Now, since I happen to do a little thing called the weather, let's go into the weather today and tell you what it's going to be like around the country.
And now to other things old and on the move. Here's Mark McEwen. Mark.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. Here I'm in the Coca-Cola car here in Pullman Yard out in DeKalb County. Let me also tell you that the weather segment this morning is on CBS this morning is sponsored by new Tri-Buffered Bufferin. That's buffered aspirin. And I'm with Sam Evans. Sam, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Sam, I see wood around here. I see we have an air conditioned in here. Let's talk about the golden age of trains. What could you expect in that age that you don't get today in trains?
Well, train transportation was pleasure, not transportation. Your every wish was my command, and you ordered your orange juice this morning, and you have your orange juice.
I think this is great.
You rode a Pullman, you put your shoes outside the door, they were shined in the morning. If the train broke down, you could walk away from it. We never any problems that way.
Now, the new Georgia Railroad is bringing back that spirit. Tell us a little about that.
Yes, sir. The new Georgia Railroad is under the auspices of the Georgia Building Authority. We want to run over the tracks of the CSX transportation, and it's manned by volunteers from the Historical Society, for which we work for love, not for pay.
Sounds like my job.
Yes.
You have a hat for me.
Yes, sir. Now, we would like to make you a conductor on the new Georgia Railroad, and remember, sir, we work for love, not for money.
All right, let me
sir.
do a little weather for love,
Yes, sir.
not for money. All right, showers and thunderstorms will cover much of the Midwest, bringing some benefits. Kathleen, back to you, but let me find, got any adult beverages?
Yes, sir, we do.
Thanks very much, Mark. 23 minutes before the hour.
Well, no one is really quite sure how important parties are to a party's convention.
I think they're pretty darn important in this town this week.
We had Charles Osgood and Faith Daniels go check it out for us. And you survived. No red eyes.
Yeah, it's one of those dirty jobs, I guess, that somebody had to do.
A national party convention is part convention and part party.
There are big parties and small ones, public ones and private ones, like the one at Liz Carpenter's house. Well, backyard, really.
That's Liz herself, over there with Mark Russell.
He did a great going with the wind. You know Mark.
Oh, of course.
Oh, hello. How you?
That's Linda Bird Johnson Robb.
I told him, you know. And the only reason I'm here,
But you're not Paul
there are people who have been has-beens and down and out for years who once said no to Liz Carpenter.
Art Buchwald's in town for the convention, too.
There's so much going on. The excitement is so great. And the suspense so much. And I can't take it. You know, I have to think about it.
I guess that's why they have these parties, is to kind of get away from the tremendous pressure of the atmosphere. Sure.
There are parties all over town, like one at the Carter Center.
Straight ahead. You can just go down the front path on either side. Hope you enjoy it. All the gardens are open tonight, even though it's a little hot, but make sure and try to catch them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we've been led down the garden path, literally.
Hi. Hello. Got a little propaganda here.
Okay,
Very
thank you.
nice to see you.
Seen Ron
Smiles political quiz yet?
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do so many people do at so many parties?
One thing they're doing is people watching. You know, who is that over there and who is that?
Well, that's Ed Asner.
That's Larry King.
There's Stephen Stills. No Crosby or Nash, though.
I've been doing this stuff since 1960.
Art Buchwald again, this time in jacket and tie.
You know who he is.
Him, too.
The International Observer set partied at Callenwald. Even small talk isn't so easy in so many different languages.
I wish I spoke French, but I only speak Spanish.
20 minutos sin tráfico. ¿Ya estás a las afueras?
You know, I thought of him as Korean, so I was thinking he was speaking Korean. Maybe he was trying to speak English, but he was really speaking Spanish, and it took me a while to change my ear.
Notice the band, in keeping with the political theme, playing out of both sides of your mouth. This must be one of those rare occasions we've heard so much about.
No matter where you go, you're not going to die of starvation.
You're not going to die of thirst, either.
Outdoor symphony is fantastic. Chastain Park might have something.
And you'll certainly get an earful about everything but politics.
Monday morning at 9 o'clock, she called my wife and said, I've got your
Atlanta this week is where the new party meets the old South.
Welcome to the Confederate Ball. A little bit late, but you got it.
something like 300 parties this weekend alone here in Atlanta.
Heard a lot about Southern hospitality. We'll find out what it's like. I'll tell you.
How about Southern food? Was there any good food out there?
Yeah, the food was good, the drink was good, although we were working, you know. I think,
serious
I'm serious, absolutely. The Southerners, knowing that a man ought to have a drink in his hand, said to me, one of them said, you want to find a bar? Go right down there to Walter Cronkite and turn to your left. Line of the day. Thanks, guys.
8 before the hour, still ahead, former First.
Remember, it's the heat, not the humidity, or it's the humidity. Well, it's always confusing to me. We'll find out all about that this morning as we check with our weather right now, and Mark McEwen, who's back at the rail yard.
Yeah, no matter whether it's the heat or the humidity, who they blame it on me. I'm out here in the Pullman Yard in DeKalb County. I'm with Dottie Plunkett, and Dottie plays some of the music on the excursions here. Dottie, you're known as Dottie Mama. Why are you known as Dottie Mama?
Well, all of my grandchildren call me that, and my special friends.
Okay,
yes,
Dottie.
And
well,
you may call me Dottie Mama.
Thank you very much. Railroad songs. Songs were built around the railroad. Tell us a few of the songs that came off of the railroad.
Well, I love the Wabash Cannonball. Gonna play it in a minute. And I've been working on the railroad, which I played when we got our new run to Stone Mountain last week.
And also, she's been coming around the mountains, another one.
Yes, yes.
Also, you have a famous person from Atlanta in your family. Tell us about your kinfolk.
Well, it's my great-uncle, my father's uncle. He was the mayor of Atlanta in 1891. Right before that, he founded the Constitution newspaper in 1868.
Well, I tell you, let's liven up the rest of the country. Let's see you play a little bit of his music right
This
here.
is to Uncle William. All right. Here's to Uncle William. May his name forever stand. May he always be remembered in the cold throughout the land. Earthly races over and burden round him call. Oh, we'll carry him on to glory on the Wabash. Come on, boy. Listen to the jingle of the rumble and the roll. As wide along the woodland to the hills and by the shore. His earthly race is over and the curtain round him falls. We'll carry him on to victory on the Wabash Cannonball.
All right, now, I've got to do a little weather. You have another song you want to play for us right here? I'm Working on the Railroad. Can you play I'm Working on the Railroad?
I will.
All right. While she's singing that in the background, hit it, Dottie. Let's see you. Showers and thunderstorms will cover much of the Midwest, delivering beneficial rains to much of the farmlands. Well, we're out here working on the railroad, and I say, back to Harry and Kathleen, is this a great life or what?
I'm working on the railroad. Come on, sit up in there.
Oh, Mark. Thank you. Rosalind Carter finds this Democrat. Mark McEwen is going a little bit slower this morning. He's down at the rail yard here in Atlanta, Mark.
Well, I'm standing in front of a train right here, which is probably a little bit slower than the one we just saw. Boy, that was a beautiful race on Saturday. All the best to her in the Olympics. I'm with Wallace Haywood, chief engineer of the New Georgia Railroad. This engine, the 750, when was this engine built?
1910.
1910. And also, why did the railroad change from steam to diesel?
Compared with a diesel locomotive, it is economics.
Aha, so you get better gas mileage, so to speak, with diesel and steam engine. What sort of work is being done on this engine?
Not a restoration, but refurbishing, because every year you must perform an annual inspection on this engine to make it in compliance with the Federal Railroad Administration edicts.
Now, when will this work be completed on this beautiful?
About 2 to 3 weeks.
And when it's done, we have a picture right now back in New York to take a picture of this. So this is what this train is going to look like again, because this is what it looked like beforehand. Isn't that a beautiful shot? You said that's in the middle of Georgia somewhere?
Yes.
That's a gorgeous sight, seeing that train motoring down the tracks. And that'll be, by the end, before the year is out, we'll be seeing that back on the tracks again.
Sorry.
Well, now, I'm going to get back on track, do a little bit of weather. Don't go away. We'll talk about all the people out there that may be traveling, whether it be through steam or through airports. Today, this is actually for tomorrow. I want to thank the New Georgia Railroad and CSX Transportation. They're the guys who have been moving all the trains. I want to thank you as well for coming out here, Mr. Haywood. Now, back to Harry.
Thanks very much, Mark. 20 minutes before the hour. John Portman is one of those architects and developers lots of critics swear at. But here in Atlanta, lots of people swear by him. The skyline here could almost have a huge sign that says, "Made by Portman." It is impossible to look at downtown Atlanta and not see the work of architect-developer John Portman. Portman is the saint of the Chamber of Commerce here and the scourge of architecture critics.
So that's all Portman.
Yeah.
What about the big one back there?
That's mine.
That's yours?
Yeah, all of this. All of this.
All of this?
All of this.
All of that? Well,
all of this.
All of it. How many buildings in downtown Atlanta stamp Portman?
26.
26 downtown Atlanta buildings that hold thousands of workers in millions of square feet worth billions of dollars. 21 years ago, when John Portman built the Hyatt Hotel here, not even the experts thought he or his buildings would have a chance. Conrad Hilton was supposed to be Portman's partner, but Hilton pulled out of the deal.
He's sitting there and he waves his arm back over and he says, "That concrete monster will never fly."
That concrete monster took wing the minute it opened. Portman brought the outside inside, and the public loved it.
It was a barn burner from day one. The lobby was mobbed. People were on the sidewalks. They were lined up all over the place trying to get in. It was an incredible deluge of people.
These days, Portman's trademark atriums are everywhere, as are the stuff that make buildings undeniably Portmanesque. The tiny twinkling lights, the soaring indoor elevators, the futuristic connecting portals. They all reflect the Portman philosophy.
So you go up an elevator and you can sit under a tree and listen to Broadway tunes and have a drink and chat with your friends. That's life. That's creating a lifestyle. You don't build these box, closed-in things where people put in cells and then you take them down elevators and dump them on the sidewalk with hordes of other people. What kind of life is that? That's absurd.
I guess we hit your passion button.
You did.
Atlanta's new Marriott Hotel is pure Portman. It takes the oh wow open space of his 21-year-old Hyatt and explodes it into the 21st century. But critics say Portman's architecture is not art. They call his atriums cliché and déclassé.
What is really ironic is that our so-called enlightened architectural critics and certain architectural elites, we must preserve the line of the street. We must preserve the facades. They're thinking romantically about an era that no longer exists. They're closing their eyes to society of today.
The maverick Atlanta architect has also come under fire for making the deals to get his buildings built. Portman says, without modesty, he is a Medici to his own Michelangelo. Artist and patron are one.
You're right. So successful. Built this city, built all these buildings and everything else, and people are still taking shots at you.
Look, I guess I go back to Emerson. Emerson said to be misunderstood is to be great. I must be pretty damn great.
It's 14 minutes before the hour. Next, Sportsman, Industrial.
Good morning, and welcome to Atlanta, Georgia, site of the 40th National Convention of the Democratic Party. After weeks of work, this city is wearing its best face to welcome 35,000 convention visitors. As part of that effort, the Omni Coliseum has been converted from a basketball arena into a convention hall, where Democrats are hoping to cultivate and showcase a spirit of unity. Though that's the objective, the inter-party squabbles are hardly over. For many delegates, the final battle's just beginning today, Monday, July the 18th, 1988.
From NBC News, this is Today, live from the Democratic National Convention in Atlanta, with Bryant Gumbel and Jane Pauley.
As any Georgian will gladly tell you, Atlanta is the hub of the New South. It's the kind of city that now courts international business, as well as a New England Yankee who's come here to claim his party's most treasured prize. And good morning, welcome to Today on a Monday morning. I hardly know you. It's good to see you
Jane
again.
Pauley.
Yes, Jane Pauley, Bryant Gumbel, how have you been? We're coming to you all this week from here in Woodruff Park in Atlanta, in the heart of downtown Atlanta, where it is hot. I guess the temperature is about the only thing competing all week long for the topic of conversation with the rift between Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson. We're going to get into that rift momentarily and talk with this convention's central figure. Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis will join us live in just about 8 minutes, along with his wife, Kitty. Jane?
A lot of handshaking going on in this city, a lot of it. The highlight of this evening's opening session will be the keynote address, and for the second time in history, it will be delivered by a woman, Texas State Treasurer Ann Richards. She'll be with us this morning. Also, the local host of the affair, the mayor of Atlanta, Andrew Young, will be here, and Ed Begley Jr., the actor, the TV star, and member of the California delegation.
Our After 8 segments all this week are going to be devoted to the most important issues facing the voters come election time. We're going to begin this morning with the one that is the #1 issue on the minds of many of the voters, and that's the war on drugs. But first, we'll start our morning by catching up with the news, and we're not going to send you to the news desk to join John Palmer, because John Palmer has joined us here in Atlanta. He's in the Omni Coliseum in the NBC News broadcast booth. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Brian, Jane. Attention here in Atlanta, of course, focused this morning on that long-awaited meeting between Michael Dukakis and his unrelenting rival, Jesse Jackson. A meeting that Democratic Party leaders hope will produce a unified convention with as little public infighting as possible. Andrea Mitchell is here in the convention hall this morning with more on that. Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning, John. Well, the Jackson camp had wanted the two candidates to meet before today. Dukakis and his camp were less eager. So instead, the two men talked by phone and agreed to today's meeting. Waiting for Dukakis at a reception for Democratic governors, a former first couple entertained until the triumphant arrival of the likely nominee. After the turmoil of the last week, there was a pointed overture to Jackson.
We're going to need Jesse. We're going to need all of the delegates that are at this convention. We're going to need every good American.
Across town, it was part revival meeting, part campaign rally for a candidate not ready to give up.
They say, Jackson, you can't make it. You're running against the odds. They just don't know. I was born against the odds.
Jackson supporters have taken out papers to challenge the nomination of Lloyd Bentsen on Thursday night. Jackson hasn't ruled that out, but close advisors think he won't take on party leaders so directly. Instead, those close to Jackson believe that he will reopen platform issues that had been tentatively settled. That's his best leverage right now against Dukakis, as Jackson continues to press for a bigger role in the campaign, in the party, and in shaping a new administration should Dukakis win. John?
Thanks, Andrea. Jackson's efforts to form what he calls a partnership with Michael Dukakis is very much on the minds of the delegates who have gathered here in Atlanta for the opening of the convention tonight. NBC News correspondent Bob Hager has talked with a number of the delegates.
Oklahoma, over here, Oklahoma! Delegates streaming into the city reflect the tensions between the candidates they represent. Jackson delegates particularly upset. Nate Holden of Los Angeles.
The fact of the matter is that Jesse is not white, not what he stands for. But 7 million people saying we want Jesse no matter what color he is.
California delegate Lois Hill Hale.
And we're going to fight so that he can get recognition, so that he can have access to the decision-making process, because he deserves it.
Dukakis delegates seem more anxious to work things out, but tend to feel it's time for Jackson to back down. Illinois' Lillian White.
And you lose, you lose. That's it. It's finished. You took your chance, and you lost.
Georgia delegate Carolyn Barbary says Dukakis should be firm.
There's sometimes you just have to say, now look, I'm the boss.
Tonight's highlight, the keynote by Texas State Treasurer Ann Richards. Here trying out different shades of dresses and testing the audio system. Most state delegations will be caucusing shortly, preparing for tonight's opening and waiting for signals from Dukakis or Jackson on whether to expect a fight over the platform and the vice presidency. Robert Hager, NBC News, Atlanta.
From Iran this morning, there is a new...
And thank you, John. Blue skies, flags waving, Southern talking. Willard Scott, you're in your element.
At my home, I'm happy as a dead hog lying in the sun. Look at this, green grass down in Georgia. Don't you think they worked on this? This is Woodruff Park. I didn't realize that Mr. Woodruff's the founder of Coca-Cola. My grandmother's maiden name was Woodruff. I just may be heir apparent to the throne of this place.
It's not apparent if you are the heir.
Well, I'll tell you, to err is human and to forgive is divine. Come on home. I love it. I drink it all the time. And I'll tell you something else. I had in my room last night, you know, a lot of these TV folks, they leave champagne and all sorts of exotic gifts. I got some of Lulabelle's gourmet cookies. I will show you the empty box. That is living proof. Good morning, girls. Anyway, what a good-looking group we have this morning with us. Bless your heart. We love Atlanta. We are home. Go to the Merrimack, get some fried chicken tonight. Let's check the act and see what we have in the weather department. You know, back in 19...
Back now, 7:30 on a Monday morning with more of our special coverage of the Democratic National Convention. We're in Woodruff Park, the geographical axis of Atlanta since this city was founded 151 years ago. Named for Robert Woodruff. He was the patriarch of the Coca-Cola Company. Along with Jane Pauley, Willard Scott, I'm Brian Gumble. It's been a long time since I've been able to say that. How you been?
My daughter's name is Sally Woodruff Scott. I want you to know.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, we've discussed that while you weren't here. But
I'm
you're
sorry.
sitting in my park, and you'll kindly get out of here.
No, I will shortly, because we've got a lot of business to tend to straight ahead in this half hour, including a...
Most of the 4,000 delegates who will be attending this convention have already arrived here in Atlanta. They poured into the city on Sunday for the official start of the convention tonight. They are the ones who later this week will formally nominate their candidates for president and vice president. They're also here to vote on the party platform, something that Jackson supporters say might come only after a floor fight. The convention formally begins.
36 minutes past the hour. Time for us to do the weather. We'll do it in 2 words. It's hot. Now let's move ahead. No, Willard's going to take his turn.
We're in beautiful downtown Atlanta at Woodruff Park, and we have the symbol of the great Democratic Party, the donkey. As a matter of fact, there's 4 of us out here.
4 is right.
Good morning. This is Art. Art is with the Yellow River Wildlife Game Ranch, and it's Art Rilling, right?
Right.
Get the right name now.
You got it all.
Look at this. I don't know if you can you get a shot of this? I've always been fascinated because these are real honest goodness Georgia burros, and we say now a burro can reproduce itself, right?
A donkey or a burro can reproduce. A mule is the one that can't.
Mule has to have help. Mule is a combination of a
burro like this and a horse.
Now, can you see this down the burro's back? This is a stripe, and there's a legend behind this, right?
Yes, that's part of the old story about Mary riding the burro, the donkey, into Bethlehem, and since then they've all had this cross on their back.
How do they get that? They're not bred into that, are they? Just
well, it's just part of their genes now.
Well, I think this is the Scarlet O'Hara over here.
Scarlet, right? Scarlet and red.
Red is showing the wrong end here, but that's okay.
Well,
I guess.
he's
So there's 4
put his best side forward.
that's the one end that we know that's the business end. Now we don't have but a minute. You got to show us over here. This is your friend General Beauregard Lee.
Right. He's studying at the paws of the master. You know, General Lee, our groundhog that forecast the weather for 6 weeks in February, doesn't work for 1 day a year. He's got it up on you guys.
Sort of like a NBC vice president.
Okay. So this little fella is learning what he can from the master.
He's terrific. And, of course, as I say, he has not made up his mind yet for whom he's going to cast his vote. He could be a Democrat or Republican, right?
He's going to be open until he sees what everybody says.
Well, these guys, Scarlet and Rent, they don't fool around here. Hello, we'll have you breakfast in just a minute. We've ordered. Let's check the Weather Act this morning. That's part of what we're paid for, so to speak.
It's a little awkward to say welcome to our next guest. He's our host. The mayor of Atlanta, Andrew Young, joins us now, a man who worked very hard to get the Democratic Convention to come to Atlanta, and he succeeded. It's a capstone of your second and final term as mayor. Well, welcome to today.
Well, and welcome to Atlanta.
And thank you. Well, your party's about to start, and the guests are still fighting. What to do?
Well, we're not fighting as much as we usually do. The purpose of a party is to bring the diverse elements of American democracy together and to send them forth with a common vision and a common message. Normally we have all kinds of fussing, but this is the first time we've come together with little or no quarrel, with a platform, with rules, with credentials. We're mainly determining the tactics by which the party will run the campaign and win the election. I think that's what Jesse Jackson and Michael Dukakis are talking about this morning.
Do you know specifically what they're talking about this morning?
Well, I know some of the things that they're talking about, and it basically involves a strategy for winning the election and how staffs are going to integrate. We were in the same position when I went to New York with Carter. We were just a group from Georgia. Nobody knew us. They thought we talked funny. They didn't know what our plans were. There were no Catholics. We were mostly Baptists, Methodists, and Jews. There were very few ethnics. We had to open up the campaign, and we had to bring in the staffs of some of the people that we've been running against. And we had to work together as a team to win the election. And that's what we did.
You're talking about what the Dukakis team then should have to do to open up.
And I think that's what they're going to do.
But what is Reverend Jackson hearing from black leaders such as yourself? Is he hearing, go for it, or stop here?
I think what he's hearing is that we've got to win this election. And we appreciate his leadership. We appreciate the enthusiasm that he has given to many voters, and we want to keep that enthusiasm. But the bottom line is winning the election and everybody voting. America loses if we lose.
How dependent is the black vote upon what Reverend Jackson does or does not do this week?
Well, I think that what you're talking about is a matter of a few percentage points one way or the other. The black political leadership is 80–90% Democratic. They're all running for office. We're going to have big turnouts. I don't think it's a matter of staying home. I think it's a matter of whether we're going to get that little extra push that pushed John Kennedy over in Illinois in 1960.
Congressman Lewis had an interesting perspective on it when he said that Reverend Jackson can be a civil rights leader or he can be a politician, but if he's a politician, he has to play by the rules, and under the rules, one man wins, and the man who doesn't win goes along.
Well, I think that's true, but goes along not dropping all of his concerns, goes along as a partner, as a part of a team. Because after all, Jesse represents about 30% of the hopes of our party. And that's not going to be hard to reconcile, because Michael Dukakis is not alien to those hopes. They're talking about how they're going to express them in this campaign.
What can Reverend Jackson do about a problem? I guess it's Michael Dukakis' problem, too. Jimmy Carter had the problem with Ted Kennedy. Reverend Jackson cannot help but upstage the candidate by his personality, the force of his oratory. What can he do about that?
Well, I don't know that he has to do anything about that. I think Governor Dukakis has put it very well. The country's had a lot of charisma. We need to put a little more emphasis on competence. And I think Michael Dukakis brings competence in running this country and leading the free world. And that's more than speech making, and it's more than enthusiastic oratory.
Well, Mayor Young, thank you for being with us once again. And from Woodruff Park, we'll be back after the message.
All right, John. Thanks very much. 6 past the hour now as we move ahead. Willard Scott is somewhere else in the park, set to do weather. Willard, what you got?
I'm learning to talk the language. Coca-Cola and Delta. That's all you got to say in Atlanta. You can get anything you want, anytime, any place. Isn't that right? Coca-Cola and Delta. He agrees. Hey, I want to show you my girlfriend. This is a fantastic animal. Winona, Mississippi. They sent me this picture. This is the EE Ranch 935. That's her number. A Hereford. This cow produced 77 calves last year by embryo transplant. Now that's what you call production. Anyway, I thought she deserved a shot on national television. Thank you, Uncle Mark. Atlanta Botanical Gardens is just one more of the exciting things in this brilliant city of the hills here. Are there 7 hills in Atlanta, or are there more than that?
Oh, there are more than that.
I remember at one time I read a little old railroad yard. It was,
That's right.
It was just a little old kind of a penny whistle stop a few years ago.
Absolutely.
And then General Sherman did instant urban renewal.
That's right.
And look what's happened. We have the Colossus, the Phoenix of the South, the Atlantic Botanical Gardens, and we have Miss Cammon with us this morning, Ann Cammon, Executive Director, and you came all the way from Connecticut. You were
I did.
You wanted to move south, and you had the right idea.
I did.
And what are these?
Well, the Atlanta Botanical Garden welcomes you to Atlanta. That's for you.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate that.
And those are all southern flowers.
That's a Tussie Mussy.
No, a big one for a big man.
Thank you. They're pretty.
You know what the original...
Did you call this Queen Anne's lace? Or
Queen Anne's lace.
All right, all right.
You know why this was a Tussie Mussy?
Why?
You know where that came from?
No, I didn't.
Came from ladies during the Victorian times when there were no deodorants.
Oh, really? So
and they
that,
wafted
and
the
everything was sort of covered everything up. We call that a marine bath.
I want to show you about what's going to happen at the Botanical Garden.
You've got a new addition.
We have a new conservatory, the Dorothy Fuqua Conservatory, that's opening next March. And this is the Nepenthes, and we're going to have a lot of these in here in the conservatory.
This is a huge glass greenhouse that will grow
Glass
plants?
house.
Glass house.
And the things we'll keep in there are things that do not grow here in Atlanta.
Right.
And I want to tell you very briefly about this Nepenthes. This is a carnivorous plant. Not man-eating, doesn't eat hamburger, none of that stuff.
Nothing.
It eats insects.
Terrific.
See these pictures?
And the bugs get in there and whammo.
That's it.
Instant protein.
That's right. This is from the Philippines, and sometimes they're a foot long.
I had to try that for a diet. I need anything I can do. I may eat a couple of those for lunch. Thank you, Ann. Ann Cameron from the Botanical Gardens and my Tussie Mussy. Lord, Miss Scarlett, never birthed no babies before. Hey, let's check the act and see what we have. As far as the weather...
Back in Atlanta, 8:30, that music courtesy of the McDonald's All-American High School Jazz Band under the direction of Bob Curnow.
I'm going to talk to them in a minute.
Oh, yeah?
They're going to help me do the weather. We're going to do a rain dance.
Is that why it says here we'll be hearing from them more in this half hour?
Half hour. Is my name on there?
No,
When did they put my name on there?
how come it don't mention you?
Well, I've been gone a month. That's what happens.
That's the case.
Who you are.
That's the case. You won't find me here.
I'll never be here.
Straight ahead in this half hour, Ed Begley Jr. is going to be joining us. In case you... 37 minutes past the hour now in Atlanta. Willard Scott couldn't do the weather to beat the band, so he joined them. Mr. Scott.
Hey, Bryce, you got that right. You know, I've had a proud and long tradition with good old McDonald, starting with the original Ronald McDonald right on through the great All-American Marching Band. And now Bob Curnow is with us with the fabulous McDonald's All-American High School Jazz Band. What a group you have got.
Well, thank you very much.
All over the country? From everywhere?
All over the country. I think we have 21 states represented here with these youngsters.
And they're going to help us because we desperately need some rain down here in Georgia.
What, do
okay.
you want a rain dance?
We want a rain dance. Come on, gang. A little bit of a... Raindrops are falling on my head. Boom, boom. Raindrops are gonna get us. Boom, boom, all up. What? Okay. Okay, that'll either make the people leave the town. The Democratic Convention will now be held in Savannah. They've just moved south. Took General Sherman 2 days to get there. Take the Democrats an hour and a half. Let's check the act and see what we have. Keep the line moving. As far as looking... One of the biggest weather stories of the day is the heat really is in the west today. Sacramento will be about 110 degrees, that hot temperature all the way up through the valleys of California into Oregon. Okay, the McDonald's All-American Jazz Band.
I have a present for you. We're going to make you an honorary member of the McDonald's All-American High School Jazz Band.
Anybody ever tell you looked a little like David Letterman?
Oh, please, don't do that.
Thank you.
I get it all the time.
Okay, just don't knock GE and we'll love you.
All right, you got it.
Okay, let's hear it for the McDonald's All-American Jazz Band.
Limehouse Blues.
You little Limehouse Blues, that fantastic organization for McDonald's.
There are 368 California delegates. Deborah Norfolk from NBC News at Sunrise is, of course, part of NBC's convention coverage, and as a native Georgian, she's, of course, seen some changes in Atlanta.
You're right.
Hi, Deborah.
Brian, how are you? There have been a lot of changes. I mean, you can look around the city and tell that obviously the skyline has changed a lot since I was a kid and came up to Atlanta all the time. But what a lot of people never knew about Atlanta is that this city has always been one on the make. Here's what I mean.
People think Atlanta is just a city a few miles, literally and figuratively, from Terra. They haven't been here lately. Atlanta's a city on the move and on the make, moving to make money.
Atlanta has a tremendous amount of activity in terms of the middle class, in terms of dollars flowing, in terms of job opportunities and growth.
And it's been that way from the beginning. Way back when, it was called Terminus, the end of the line for the railroads. Transportation made the city grow, but for a few trouble spots along the way, it's never stopped. There was this dark spot during the 1860s, the war between the states, and a Yankee general named Sherman.
The South sinking to its knees. It will never rise again.
Shows you how much Rep. Butler knew. Ashley Wilkes called it better.
I see the Yankees coming and coming, always more and more.
And they're still coming. Atlanta today is the country's fastest growing area. There are 2.6 million people living in the area now. In 20 years, it'll be closer to 4 million. And 3 of every 5 of them are from someplace else.
I'm from St. Charles, Illinois.
Tucson, Arizona. Valley Forge.
Yankees in Georgia! How did they ever get in?
Well, Aunt Pitty, they got in because Atlanta is easy to get to. The railroad hub that gave Atlanta its start grew to more modern modes of travel. Motor cars in the teens, airplanes in the 20s. Atlanta City Airport was a grass strip and a hangar in 1925, but in 1930, passenger service began. And today, Atlanta's airport has so many flights coming and going on a daily basis, it's claimed the title of world's busiest. That ease of access has started a building and business boom that's earned the city #1 ratings as a place to do business, access markets, and live, according to a recent Harris poll of business executives.
We've expanded our economy by 350,000 new jobs in the past 5 years. We've increased by 868 new businesses in the past 5 years. We have some programs in place that will keep that progress going pretty strongly throughout the next 3 or 4 years, and we're looking for a very strong future.
One of those new businesses is Academy Insurance Company, which invested over $1 million to move its headquarters from Valley Forge, Pennsylvania.
We chose Atlanta because of our perception of the business climate here and the lower cost of living and a great transportation center. And in the end, we just felt like it was all around a better environment to be in over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Cable TV executive Collie Burnett came to Atlanta 16 years ago because it seemed like a place where blacks could flourish. While other parts of the South were embroiled in racial violence, Atlanta bypassed many of the struggles, calling itself the city too busy to hate.
Hate comes from people. People don't have a true understanding of other people. Atlanta is not too big for that. The real issue in Atlanta is that people, whether you're white or black or Asian, what have you, they truly understand that green spends anywhere.
But in the rush to get the green, Atlanta is experiencing some growing pains. Highway expansion has been slow, traffic jams are getting worse, and rapid transit, while in existence, isn't always where it might best serve.
There's a lot of people who are unemployed on the south side and a lot of jobs way up in the fast growth counties on the north side. And there really isn't the public transportation to get the people to where the jobs are. That's a big structural problem Atlanta's going to have to overcome in the next 10 to 15 years.
But then, as Scarlett said,
I'll think about that tomorrow.
Today Atlanta is a mecca for anyone trying to get ahead.
I came down here because of the opportunities. I heard it was a great job market. It was a young, growing city. So I came down to be a part of it.
And optimism seems one commodity that's in great supply.
Deborah, thanks for the tour. We want to compare your voice now to what it'll be like come Friday.
I hope anybody can understand me by Friday.
It'll end with a question. We're going to come back in just a moment. Some final notes right after this.
Now,
TV5 Eyewitness News at noon with Paul Shields and Amanda Bevel, Cheryl Jones Weather, and the Eyewitness News team. This is TV5 Eyewitness News at noon.
Plus live from the Omni, Convention 88.
Good afternoon. After months of preparation and much anticipation and hard work, the opening gavel of the Democratic National Convention in our city is now just hours away. Already some excitement this morning as Michael Dukakis, Jesse Jackson, and Lloyd Bentsen meet together in front of reporters. Our own Richard Belcher has been following all the goings-on from our skybox at the Omni. He joins us now live with details. Richard?
Amanda, this is a very big political story this morning. Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson now appear to have mended many of the differences that had stood between them. In a news conference just a few moments ago, Dukakis, Jackson, and Lloyd Bentsen stood together as Governor Dukakis pledged his support for Jackson and his contributions to the Democratic Party.
I want Jesse Jackson to play a major role in this campaign. I want his supporters, who are out there by the millions, to be deeply involved in this campaign.
We've met and discussed matters of serious and significant concern, a relationship of substance, support, and candor, with a commitment to help build a team that will expand our party and carry us to victory in November.
One of the things that Reverend Jackson said just a few moments ago was that he was looking for what he called a Chicago miracle, but he said it with a smile. Kevin Sweeney, what do you take from this morning's meeting?
Well, the important thing is Jesse Jackson says we have an agreement. He says his name is going to be placed in nomination on Wednesday night, but he says after that things will change. I am going to be part of the team. This was a very long, slow embrace between the two candidates, something they've wanted for a long time.
Is it now meaningless to ask the question, why did it take so long for them to do this?
I don't think it is. I mean, this is a test of Mike Dukakis' skills as a negotiator. He finally got an agreement. It probably was too late, or it probably was very late in the process, but they do have an agreement right now. What is going to happen next is I've talked to some people on the Jackson staff. The two staffs are going to meet later on this afternoon very quickly, and they expect to iron out differences on the platform today very quickly. They want this thing to be an amicable gathering, and they're hoping for that. I think they'll have it. 200
reporters breakfasted on generalities this morning. There weren't many specifics in that news conference. It was the symbolism of seeing them together, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, Jesse Jackson made a very good point. He said there was no deal, there is no fine print. This was just a matter of understanding, and that's extremely important. Mike Dukakis can't appear to cave in, and Jesse Jackson can't demand too much. The two agreed to agree, and that's pretty much all that happened today. But again, there was no real deal, as Dukakis pointed out. There's no specifics they can point to. The two men agree on how the campaign is going to be worked out, and we have to take them at their word on that.
My instant analysis is that really only two things matter. Is Jesse Jackson going to disrupt the convention this week, and will he campaign like the Dickens this fall?
Yes, no, and yes.
All right. Kevin Sweeney, thanks very much.
Sure.
There is a lot of other activity that is surrounding the convention today. We want to bring you up to date on what some of the highlights are. There are protest marches, rallies, and speeches planned throughout the day. A demonstration will be led by Atlanta City Councilman Hosea Williams, demanding that Jesse Jackson be the Democrats' vice presidential nominee. That'll start right before the convention just gets underway. The actual convention begins with the opening gavel at 6:24 this evening. As part of opening ceremonies, Atlanta Mayor Andrew Young welcomes the delegates to our city. Former President Jimmy Carter is also coming back from political oblivion. He is scheduled to address this national convention. The keynoter tonight, Texas State Treasurer Ann Richards. But of course, the big story that we're following, an apparent peace conference between Jackson and Dukakis this morning, a story that we're going to be following all day long. We'll have much more at 5. Right now, back to you, Amanda.
All right. Thank you, Richard. Well, as Richard mentioned, the second day of scheduled demonstrations is off to a quieter start than the first, which was marred with violent clashes between demonstrators and police and demonstrators with demonstrators. Tension started flaring early as anti-Klan demonstrators awaited the arrival of Ku Klux Klansmen scheduled to march through town. But before the Klan ever arrived, the counter-demonstrators clashed with police, prompting Atlanta Public Safety Commissioner George Napper to revoke the Klan's parade permit.
Damn the Klan, damn the city Atlanta police. They're the ones not
blocking us out of the way.
Had the march been allowed to go on, then there would have, I think, been bloodshed in the streets of Atlanta, and that's something that I'm not going to have in the city.
Without a permit, though, some Klansmen went on to the free speech area at the Omni. There, a group of Nazi skinheads met up with some of the demonstrators from the Capitol rally, and the two groups went at it. Police managed to gain control of the situation without any serious injuries or arrests taking place. Aside from demonstrations and the politics that go along with the National Party convention, there is the party. In this case, lots of them. This weekend alone, an estimated 300 parties were thrown all over town. Big parties, small parties, public and private. Like this backyard affair at Liz Carpenter's house. That's the hostess there with Mark Russell.
He did a great Gone with the Wind. You know Mark. Oh, of course. Oh, hello.
On a larger scale, the bash at the Carter Presidential Center brought out lots of familiar faces, while a gathering of the international set at Kellenwald was a bit more subdued. One thing's for certain, though, the party and National Party convention doesn't leave you hungry or thirsty.
And Amanda, on another international...
Time now for today's editorial. Here's TV5's Paul Raymond.
Atlantans are getting a unique view of a national political convention and the hoopla surrounding it. Demonstrators for every possible cause are here to grab the limelight. Sunday afternoon's violence between police and a grab bag of anti-Klan protesters makes it clear that some groups won't be content to protest on stage or on schedule, as city officials had naively hoped. Everyone has the right to demonstrate peacefully, but no one, not the Klan or the anti-Klan, the punks, the skinheads, or anyone else, has the right to physically attack another group. The special police squad handling these convention confrontations has a formidable task, made worse by the searing heat. The squad is made up of officers from the Atlanta Police, the Georgia State Patrol, and State of Georgia Corrections officers. They deserve our respect for handling a very difficult situation, and they have it. I'm Paul Raymond.
One of those mornings you want to forget about on Wall.
This is Channel 2 Action News at noon, a special edition, Convention 88.
Yes, that's right. Seeing is believing. Jackson, Dukakis, and Benson all together on the stage talking to reporters just moments ago. Good afternoon. I'm Chris Curl in the Channel 2 Action News anchor booth here at the Omni. But the real news is coming from the Hyatt Hotel, what you just saw, where Jackson and Dukakis met and, it seems, made peace. And what they decided, what they talked about, and what they did will set the tone not only for this convention, but also for the very important fall campaign. Bill Nygett and Vic Carter were there. Bill.
Well, Chris, we're at the Hyatt Regency downtown, as you said. About 8:30 this morning, Jesse Jackson arrived here to have breakfast with Michael Dukakis. They were in a session for some 2 hours, and then emerged Lloyd Benson, the Dukakis running mate, Michael Dukakis himself, and Jesse Jackson talking about peace, all three of them. Here's what they had to say.
And I want Jesse Jackson to play a major role in this campaign. I want his supporters, who are out there by the millions, to be deeply involved in this campaign. They're going to be an essential part of the coalition we build coming out of this convention to win a Democratic victory in November.
On Wednesday night, my name will go into nomination. And that is over. We're going to another level of our campaign, because then we will have a nominee. Things will fundamentally change then as we move from the all-star break of American politics on the World Series in November.
With this kind of cohesion and unity, I'm convinced we're going to win a great victory in November. Thank you.
Now, Jackson says that his name will still be placed in nomination on Wednesday night for the presidency. He says he's still hoping for a Chicago miracle, Vic Carter, which means he says he doesn't expect it to snow down here. He doesn't expect to win the nomination. But what the heck? Why not hope for it?
Absolutely. You know, Jackson has said all along that he is not out of this thing, that he's going to stay in it, and he's going to stay in it to the end until he is no longer considered a vice presidential nominee. And obviously it was indicated today very strongly when he stood up there and said, yes, my name will be entered on Wednesday when the nominations come up.
Now, that had been planned all along, and it really didn't have much to do, we think, with Jackson's position in the negotiations. But what was up in the air a little bit was whether or not Jackson would have his name placed in nomination for the vice presidency on Thursday night as a protest of the Benson selection by Dukakis. He told us down there just a few minutes ago he did not have any plans to have his name placed in nomination and would not encourage outside forces to do that. I would say that's a breakthrough of sorts.
Oh, definitely so. And another thing you have to consider is some of the other elements that Jesse Jackson has been fighting for. Obviously, they have come to some significant agreements here. And obviously, they are right now and will, throughout the rest of this campaign, be standing side by side, working together for the Democratic Party.
Vic Carter, who is covering the Jackson campaign throughout Convention Week. One last note, the platform talks between the Jackson and Dukakis forces will begin again, we have been told. I talked to a Dukakis platform organizer a few minutes ago, or a negotiator rather, who says there still are some differences. There can be expected to perhaps be some minority reports when the platform is debated tomorrow, but it looks like those will go forward in a feeling of good harmony.
Also, the timing of this is perfect because later on today, Jesse Jackson and President Carter will be standing side by side, Jackson and Dukakis will be standing side by side at the Carter Presidential Center.
Well, Chris Curl, back at the skybox, it looks like peace is at hand.
It certainly looks like it. I don't want either of you to go away just yet. I know you've got some more coverage to do, and you've got to grab Jesse Jackson and Michael Dukakis there to talk with them for our coverage later this evening. But let me stop you and get some specifics. We heard Michael Dukakis say deeply involved. They talk about a role. What specifically will we see Jesse Jackson doing for Michael Dukakis, for the Benson-Dukakis ticket from now through November?
Well, Chris, last night in our interview with Michael Dukakis, he said he'll be glad to provide Jesse Jackson with an airplane and a staff. He also told us today in the news conference that some of Jackson's top staffers will be incorporated in the Dukakis campaign. But Dukakis would not be specific about what role Jackson will have, other than that he will certainly be out there working.
Of course, yes, that's exactly right. Also, as I imagine that Jackson will be doing more of what he has been doing, getting out there and registering more voters for the Democratic Party.
Chris, we'll have a lot more at 5 and at 6.
We'll count on that. Thank you very much, Bill Nigut and Vic Carter. We go now to Mark Picard at the Marriott, where the Georgia delegation is. About a third of the Georgia delegates have been so far committed to Jesse Jackson. Tell us, Mark, what do you think is going to happen when his name goes into nomination?
Well, Chris, I don't think anymore there are going to be any surprises. One surprise that there is going to be here at the Marriott Marquis, a lot of these Jackson delegates who are meeting here, coincidentally, for their first official briefing of the convention, are not aware that there's been any sort of a harmonious agreement struck between Jackson and Dukakis. The delegates that we talked to were not aware that there was any peacemaking going on coming out of this meeting, and they are here still somewhat skeptical of Jackson's position in the overall campaign. They expect to hear this morning from either Jackson himself or a top member of his campaign staff as to what they should be thinking come potential floor fights tomorrow on the platform, and then when Jesse his name is entered into for presidential nominee. And there was still a question in their mind as to whether anybody would be introducing him into the vice presidential nomination. When officials come over here, obviously, they're going to answer all of those questions for these people. Back to you, Chris.
Well, I guess now the strategy is over, and now we're to tactics. Thank you very much, Mark Picard. Right now, we want to go to Jeff Dorr. He is covering the protesters and demonstrations. Some are protesting, some are demonstrating. They have one thing in common. They're all under the hot sun with Jeff Dorr. Jeff.
It is warm out here. It is not quite so hot in the political sense, though, as it was yesterday when the police had to break up a large group of protesters. Today, it's been a much quieter scene. Small groups have been demonstrating in little groups around the city, including a 24-hour vigil going on over at the Richard Russell Federal Building, complete with some live music. People from a variety of groups are taking turns over there reading the names of people allegedly killed by the Contras in Nicaragua. They're protesting U.S. involvement in Central America. When we dropped by a few hours ago, they had no audience, but they did have a terrific saxophone player. Now, back here at the demonstration site, what we have going on behind us is what is called a die-in. It is to call attention to the AIDS problem. People are, as they read out lists of names of people who have died from AIDS, other people lie down on the ground. They're outlined in chalk. It's sort of reminiscent of the Vietnam Wall. We just heard that another group on the other side of the hotel district from here has started a march, and we're headed that way. Chris, back to you.
March begins. Thank you very much, Jeff Dorr. We have a lot more political news for you. We also have some non-convention news.
Close to the home, Atlanta Mayor Andrew Young is toughening up on the police presence in downtown Atlanta during this week's Democratic Convention. A scheduled march yesterday by a white supremacist group at the Capitol turned into a fight with counter-demonstrators. Young says he wants to prevent it from happening again.
We're going to have a strong police presence at every public occasion to prevent any kind of similar conflicts occurring.
Now, the mayor says if the nationalist movement group applies for another march permit, it will be given serious consideration at City Hall. And Andrew Young says the white supremacist group was denied its chance to march and rally on yesterday. Now, when we get back, our convention... Thank you very much, Chris. We'll come back to you in just a little while. You may not be aware of it, but the Democratic parties, that's right, the Democratic parties are in town in Atlanta this week. If you were watching Channel 2 last night from 8 to 9 p.m., you probably saw some of the 56 parties being given by delegates and invited guests. But if you weren't watching... Several thousand people jammed into CNN Center last night for what many say was the hottest ticket in town. Ted Turner's bash brought out some of the biggest names in Democratic Party politics: Carter, Dukakis, Nunn, Benson, just to name a few, and the band played on and on. At the Carter Presidential Center, media stars Walter Cronkite, Art Buchwald, and Ed Asner hobnobbed. The big names were everywhere, sometimes dropping in at one party for a few minutes, then heading out for another. And the parties were everywhere, from the square in Marietta with its Victorian theme and its ever-present Dukakis boosterism to the elegance of the IBM building in Midtown at a party hosted by Fulton County Commissioner Michael Lomax. The Sports Rock Cafe in Flamingo Jones also showed a different slice of Atlanta life after dark, in stark contrast to the elegance of the Atlanta newspaper's party at the High Museum of Art, where 4,000 elegant people showed up. And there will be more parties later today. The City Council President Marvin Arrington is having a party. I guess that's why they call this the week of the Democratic parties. We'll be back with more in a minute.
If you're just joining us here on Action News at noon, let us tell you what happened within the last hour. Less than an hour ago, Michael Dukakis, Jesse Jackson, and Lloyd Benson were standing elbow to elbow. The first time that Dukakis and Jackson had met face-to-face since they met for dinner on July 4th. Our Mark Picard is at the Marriott where the Georgia delegation is staying, and we'd like to know, Mark, what they make of all this.
Well, Chris, you know, I don't know how much they know. Behind me in the Marriott Marquis Imperial Ballroom, all of the Jackson delegates to the convention, or a good number of them, are being briefed as to what is going on and what the issues are. Walking in, I spoke to several of the Georgia delegates who didn't know that this meeting between Jackson and Dukakis was over with and apparently went very well. Now, inside, that's going on. Outside, just a few moments ago, there was a fairly large demonstration in favor of Jesse Jackson held by the ACORN group. ACORN is an acronym, and basically it's a community activist organization. But apparently the group was there for some half an hour, 45 minutes, blocked traffic in front of the Marriott Marquis, not violent at all, and it ended a few moments ago. We are told that Jesse Jackson is apparently going to come here to speak to the delegates, but he also has an obligation at the Carter Presidential Center scheduled running behind, so we don't know if he'll be here, but we'll be standing by if he does show up. Back to you, Chris.
We're counting on it. Thank you very much, Mark Picard, and we will see you again at 5 o'clock. Monica and I look forward to seeing you then. Back to you, Ron Saylor in the studio.
All right, thank you very much, Chris Curl, and just before we leave you today, well, we got to leave, we're out of time.
This is CNN, a network of Turner Broadcasting System.
Now, people are promoting causes from AIDS to welfare are protesting in Atlanta now to gain the attention of the convention delegates. This morning, for example, a group called March On began demonstrating outside the convention center. The Los Angeles-based group is trying to raise greater public awareness and understanding for people suffering from AIDS. About 300 protesters participated in what they call a die-in, what you were looking at just a moment ago. Demonstrators would fall on the ground as the names of people who died from AIDS were called out. Now here's what's on tap for this evening's.
This is CNN, a network of Turner Broadcasting System.
The party spirit is overtaking Atlanta. Since last night, the city has treated Democratic delegates to nearly nonstop festivities. At some, hosts and hostesses dressed in antebellum costumes, images of the South that was. But the South that is quite different, as CNN's Mark Walton explains in this first of a series of special reports, CNN's Delegates Guide to Dixie.
Our quest for Dixie began in Atlanta, the gateway to the South.
Hey, how you doing today? How are you, sir? Fine.
We went searching for things Southern, grits, magnolias, mint juleps, and antebellum mansions.
Actually, what we've become really is, in a very small city sense, a duplicate of New York.
I'd like to have a mint julep, please.
Mint julep. I never heard of that one.
You don't know what it is?
I heard it's a Southern drink.
It's a Southern drink.
With signs of Dixie all but gone in its capital city, we pushed deeper into the Deep South, to the fertile cotton and soybean fields of the Mississippi Delta. We found one Southern tradition thriving, rural poverty.
And jobs now. Can't nobody get no job out of them.
They used to say that cotton was king of the Delta, and now they say that food stamp is the biggest industry. Those who are working work very, very hard. Many of them don't have electricity. Illiteracy is around 50%. When you try to compare what's going on out there now to what went on 50 years ago, I would say there has been no progress.
Yet, in this land that progress so long forgot, there are unmistakable signs that even the Delta has become Americanized. Born and bred Mississippian, Cornelius Gaines has shed some of his Dixie provincialism and become a citizen of the world. No job, no air conditioning, 3 kids in a ramshackle trailer, and an 82-channel satellite dish.
It make you feel better in life, that you could watch different channels, and that's something you never seen before, all over the world, really.
So we pressed on, searching for pure Dixie on the hillbilly back roads of Tennessee. What we found was Japan.
You got to make them somewhere. Might as well be in Tennessee.
On to Nashville. Surely we'd find Southern comfort here.
This is a very fit-in kind of town, you know. They'll accept just about anything.
I want peace. I want to see if somewhere there isn't something left in life of charm and grace. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Hold on, Scarlett. For here on a soft Georgia knoll, we might have found the Dixie we were after. Author Margaret Mitchell's granddaddy's century-old plantation home, her real-life inspiration for Tara, the famous Southern mansion in Gone with the Wind. Untouched. That is, except for the truck that moved it here, for Betty Talmadge's dream, a Tara theme park.
When people go west, they're looking for cowboys. And when they come to Atlanta, they're looking for Tara and Scarlett and Rip. And you know, I own the movie facade, too.
Nearby, the signpost announces Tara Boulevard, a place where the commercial boom has engulfed what was once a lonely country road.
Isn't that sad?
Times change. You walk on, you know. It's reality, son. This reality.
Some call it harsh reality, some inevitable progress. Either way, money, power, and technology transformed our search for Dixie into a journey of illusions. I'm Mark Walton, CNN.
Tomorrow, CNN's Larry Woods looks at some Old South traditions that some Southerners refuse to abandon. And still ahead.
Now, another story that's unfolding throughout the convention week involves the people who are vying for the attention of the convention delegates. People protesting for causes that range from AIDS to welfare. They're all marching in Atlanta this week, and city officials have provided them a specific space just across from the convention hall for their demonstrations. CNN's John Holloman is there right now. He has this live report on today's protests and the issues involved. John?
Ralph, as you've said, people at the Democratic Party convention are making many of their big policy decisions inside the convention hall, but outside the convention there is a place called the demonstration area where people from all walks of life who ask the Democratic Party and local authorities for permission to demonstrate and speak out for one cause or another are gathering. Right now, it's sort of a lull in the activity. There is one demonstrator on the podium behind me, a man who says he is a former Black Panther who hijacked an airplane to Cuba and was in jail there for 12 years and believes that the United States government should not be condemning the government of South Africa when it is not condemning other governments, including the government of Cuba. But earlier today here, there was a huge demonstration involving several hundred people who were for or against the abortion issue. That demonstration got very noisy. There was a group of people who were advocating money from the Democratic Party to help find new housing for the homeless, and there have been numerous groups in the arms race issue and other issues to come here. These demonstrators will continue to be coming here all week long, and some of them have told us, for example, the leaders of a gay and lesbian rights activist group, which was here early in the day today, say that all they want is for the Democratic Party to know that they are becoming an acceptable group, and that they want the Democratic Party to do or put a plank in the platform which says that the government should do all that it can to help people who are infected or who might someday be infected with the AIDS disease. So that's the sort of thing that is being talked about here. The idea is to get the attention of the delegates, but even more than that, to get the attention of the reporters who are walking by on the walkways around us and going inside to cover the convention. They figure this is a gathering of up to 15,000 reporters, many, many television cameras, just like the one that's showing you me. So they're all here, and they're all at work attempting to cover as much of this as possible, as are we. For now, John Holloman, CNN Live, outside Convention Hall at the demonstration area.
And coming up next, a look at the rules the Democrats...
This is Channel 2 Action News at 5. A special edition, Convention 88.
A truce has been called. Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson work out their differences and shake hands as a sign of party unity.
And they will be elbow to elbow tonight here at the Omni as the 40th Democratic Convention begins in just about an hour from now, and we will have it all live for you. I'm Chris Curl.
Good evening, I'm Monica Kaufman. It appears a floor fight may have been avoided now that Jesse Jackson and Michael Dukakis have literally kissed and made up. But political reporter Bill Niga says the two men still have a lot more talking to do. For instance, just what will be Jackson's role in the Dukakis campaign? We now go to Bill live on the floor. Bill.
And of course, Monica and Chris, the other question, exactly how will they resolve their differences on the platform? But for now, we can report, just as Jackson and Dukakis would like us to, that they are moving towards a peace. You know, the last time that Jackson and Dukakis got together face-to-face, it was at Dukakis' Brookline, Massachusetts home for dinner on the 4th of July. This morning, Jackson came calling for breakfast at Dukakis' downtown hotel. After a 2.5-hour closed-door session, Jackson, Dukakis, and running mate Lloyd Benson emerged to tell waiting reporters that peace is at hand.
And I want Jesse Jackson to play a major role in this campaign. I want his supporters, who are out there by the millions, to be deeply involved in this campaign.
they're going to be an essential part of the coalition we build coming out of this convention.
We've met and discussed matters of serious and significant concern, a relationship of substance, support, and candor, with a commitment to help build a team that will expand our party and carry us to victory.
Dukakis and Jackson said little about the specifics of their discussion. No word, for instance, on the exact role Jackson will play in the fall campaign. Jackson said his name will still be placed in nomination for president on Wednesday night, largely as a symbolic gesture to his supporters. But his previous threats to challenge the Benson vice presidential nomination seem to evaporate today. Jackson said he won't place his name in nomination, and furthermore,
for second, there will be no encouragement of anyone to do it. I hope that...
Top Jackson aides told us that for the first time, they're now beginning to feel that Dukakis understands Jackson's value. And that does seem to have been one of the most important things that perhaps was accomplished. A number of Jackson's supporters and key aides said to me, we finally get the sense that maybe Michael Dukakis is learning to appreciate us. And perhaps at this point, that is the key to moving ahead on the platform problems that they still face and resolving exactly what Jackson will do in the 1988 fall campaign. Vic Carter has been monitoring Jackson's reaction and the reaction of his supporters to the meeting this morning. Vic, over there at the Marriott Marquis Hotel, are the Jackson people, I assume, moving forward, trying to resolve all the other differences at this point?
Well, of course, Bill, they've been saying that all along, that they hope that some of these differences can be worked out. Here at the Marriott Marquis, right at this very moment, Ron Brown with the Jackson campaign and Paul Brontes with the Dukakis campaign are holding a press briefing. We had hoped to get a little bit more information about what the details of this agreement is. Of course, we've not gotten any new ground broken in that regard. Of course, this meeting this morning was something that Jesse Jackson had wanted, and some staffers say they aren't very far along, or as far along as they would like to be, but they certainly are a step closer than they were.
The excitement that we feel in Atlanta today is hope has been unleashed on our nation.
As Jesse Jackson stood with presidential hopeful Michael Dukakis, it was quite evident that their meeting had produced some results.
So the range of subject matter was broad, in depth, in detail, in my judgment, fruitful.
Jackson did say that he will not seek a real position or salary with the Dukakis campaign. He says he wants to continue doing what he has been doing, delivering voters for the Democrats.
I feel my effectiveness would be lessened if I had a role, a title, a salary, a job. And so we've talked today in some measure about a role that would not only be sufficient for me to be able to be a supportive member of that team.
Jackson supporter Atlanta Mayor Andrew Young was not surprised by the outcome.
That's what we told you all along.
Those of us who worked in his behalf are going to be satisfied as well. He's the leader. Just as Dukakis is that quarterback, he's ours. We don't need two of those.
Of course, although there was a show of unity this morning, there are still some yet unresolved differences. Reverend Jackson, of course, wants to hear more information, to hear more of what Michael Dukakis has to say about party policies, priorities, and, of course, the party direction. Reverend Jackson says those talks on those specific issues are underway, and he hopes to be a lot closer than he was today by tomorrow. That's it from here at the Marriott Marquis. Okay. Chris and Monica.
Vic, thank you. And now that the Democratic power brokers have joined to show at United Front, at least, now they can go about the business of meeting and greeting all their supporters.
Well, Lloyd Benson is the vice presidential candidate, and he's not a household word, you know, outside of Texas. So today he spent time glad-handing at all the state delegations. And John Alston reports live from the Omni.
This is a party for the Hispanic Democrats going on right now live at the Omni Hotel. Senator Benson is expected here at 6 o'clock. As you said, he has been all over. Here you have the Hispanics, one of the fastest growing minorities in the country, and certainly an important political force in Texas, Benson's home state. Earlier in the day, he met with delegations from Ohio and New Jersey, where he was careful to assure delegates that Dukakis is a man who can get the job done without raising taxes.
I've watched him take the state of Massachusetts and turn it around from an economic standpoint. And he did it without great spending or taxes, but by able fiscal management of the taxpayer's dollar.
But when he was done, a crowd of delegates began chanting, "Jesse, Jesse, Jesse." And then people on the other side of the room began shouting, "Benson, Benson, Benson." So while the likely vice presidential candidate did do some glad handing and hear some cheers, he also got a taste of how some delegates feel about their man, Jesse Jackson, and very strong feelings. That is it live here from the Omni Hotel. Back to you, Monica and Chris.
Well, thank you very much. You know, that division is not only in that delegation, but also in the Georgia delegation, because in Georgia, Jackson won the majority of the votes, and so he got the most delegates.
That's right. In fact, a third of the Georgia delegation is made up of Jackson delegates, at least a third anyway. And Mark Picard has been following their reaction and also the expectations of all the Georgia delegates. He's at the Omni Hotel. Mark.
Right. John Alston just gave me the microphone and his suit, as you noticed. We are here at the Omni. You mentioned about the Georgia delegation's strong ties to the Jackson campaign, and there isn't really anyone in American politics who can whip up his supporters into an emotional frenzy as Jesse Jackson can. His challenge now is to convince his delegates to work within the system, to follow the rules, to, as Jackson himself says, be disciplined and keep your eyes on the prize. The Georgia delegates I spoke with got the message.
Reverend Jackson is giving us instructions to keep maintaining discipline, hold off making any sudden decisions. They're working toward resolving any differences that were there, and said, hold fast to what we've been doing.
The unified convention no longer seems to be a concern, but the Jackson forces and the candidate himself made it clear that what they have come to Atlanta for, they will not leave without. Respect, a commitment by the party to respond to platform issues raised by the Jackson forces, and the sense of accomplishment of having their candidate's name placed into nomination for the president. And then there is the question of Thursday night. That is the night of the vice presidential nomination. Mike Mears, who you heard from in that interview, has been telling me that Jackson has been speaking to the delegates and telling them not to look beyond Wednesday night, the night of the presidential nomination, not to look beyond that, and not to look to the vice presidency. But I have been speaking with some Georgia delegates who are telling me that the question of the vice presidential nomination is still open in their minds. Monica, Chris?
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. As you know, the politics of this convention is what brought us all together, the leadership and all the delegates and all of the media. But of course, the convention story includes much more than just politics.
It also includes demonstrations. And coming up next, a clash between pro and anti-abortion groups, and threats were issued. We'll tell you against who. Security has been tightened tonight at area abortion clinics, and already there have been clashes between anti and pro-abortion groups.
Mark Winnie was there when it happened, when the incident occurred. He has a report now on the incident itself and how it might affect security tomorrow.
Police in a parking lot, watching and waiting on 14th Street, watching a clinic where abortions are performed. Across Midtown, a pair of policemen watched another clinic this morning. And several blocks away, a similar stakeout was underway. A group of anti-abortion activists called Operation Rescue is in town. And word is they want to shut down a clinic.
We're concerned, but we are organized. So I think that we won't have any problems in terms of maintaining services this week.
We're going to go to one of the local abortuaries and peacefully sit down and block access to it so that no mothers can be exploited and no babies can be killed.
If anybody tries to get in and to get by, what happens?
Well, they won't be able to get by because of the mass of bodies that'll be there.
What if the police tell you not to?
The people that are here are prepared to be arrested.
Operation Rescue's blockade of an abortion clinic isn't expected until tomorrow. But they found confrontation today at a rally they held in Woodruff Park. That clash was heated and face-to-face, police presenting a passing presence. But several minutes later, a few blocks away, the two groups met again. This time, police stepped in, the situation eased, but tomorrow, according to Terry, Operation Rescue's folks are planning to go to jail. It is, he acknowledges, a trade-off in which the exposure is deemed worth jail.
Absolutely. To be totally honest with you, the best thing that could happen for the pro-life cause and injecting abortion into the 1988 political debate would be for 100 people to spend a couple days in jail during the Democratic National Convention.
I spoke with Deputy Atlanta Police Chief W.J. Taylor. He said police respect the activists' right to object to abortion, but if they refuse to let a business operate, quote, we will arrest them. In the World Congress Center, this is Mark Winnie, Channel 2 Action News.
Of course, there are scores of other demonstrations and hundreds of other demonstrators in designated areas outside this convention hall.
Now, groups such as Art Pluribus Unum, The Palestine Solidarity Committee and No Business as Usual are all scheduled to protest during the convention. Now, Jeff Dorr will be covering most of those demonstrations, and now he joins us live from the staging area.
Well, Monica, we have some very fresh news for you. I don't know if you heard it in the skybox yet, but just a couple of minutes ago, for the second time in 2 days, riot police moved in on the streets of Atlanta. It happened right across the street from us here. There was a group out here demonstrating about gay and AIDS issues both. There were some other people we've seen in skirmishes yesterday, and the riot police moved in. The mayor said yesterday, after the skirmishes with the police, that they really disturbed him. He said we had hoped we could avoid police in riot gear, but he said we can't. And so today he said he ordered in more police, more visibility, and more control in the area. We've had other demonstrations here today, and a wide variety of them around town. The biggest and noisiest of the demonstrations we saw earlier was by a group called Acorn, who marched through the downtown district from the delegates' hotels to the Federal Reserve Bank. They try to get housing for the poor and want the bank to loosen up with its money. An AIDS awareness group staged a die-in, they called it, chalking the outlines of bodies on the ground as people read off the names of patients who died from AIDS. And a group at the Russell Federal Building patiently read the names of thousands of people allegedly killed by Contras in Nicaragua. They didn't have much of an audience, but they did have a great saxophone player. Now, as we were saying just a few minutes ago, another group, this was a group that was trying to bring awareness to the city about the AIDS problem, got outside of the free speech area here, and I think if we can keep that tape rolling, we'll have a little bit of what happened there. It was a demonstration. They were having what they called a kiss-in, and they were told to disperse. They got on the other side, outside of the free speech area on Marietta Street, an area forbidden to them by police. The Atlanta police called in full riot-dressed police who chanted, "Move, move, move," and pushed them back out of Marietta Street, back onto International Boulevard, and then finally back into the free speech area. So what Mayor Young had said he desperately hoped he would not see at all, we have now seen on the streets of Atlanta 2 days in a row. Monica and Chris, back to you.
Okay, Jeff, thank you very much. And joining Monica and me now is a man who watches all these proceedings at the convention with a unique perspective. You know, when they first started blocking off the traffic around the Omni and the World Congress Center, Monica, you said that it was the best way to get around in Chopper 2. Now I think it's the only way to get around.
So to help you avoid the traffic jams, if you have to come downtown, we have our nightly Metro Convention traffic report from Joyce Oscar.
The Republicans have never made me walk 4 blocks.
A few people felt inconvenienced by a rearranged flow of traffic, but for the most part, morning rush hour near the Democratic Convention site rolled along like a well-oiled voting machine.
Permit parking only, sir.
Despite all the warnings, some folks who chose to drive into work were caught off guard, and some gouging could be found in the price of a parking space for just one day.
It's all supply and demand.
But T. Wall said his lot stayed at the same $3 a day rate. Most commuters who had to get downtown to work knew well before today if they had any plans of getting near the convention site, this might be the best mode of transportation. MARTA officials say thousands of additional passengers used their rail and bus service for the first time. But you may want to get a ride to the rail since MARTA lots are overflowing. City officials today shut off another street near the convention site. Now traffic on Marietta from Jones to Spring is blocked, as well as International from Marietta to Magnum and Techwood from Marietta to International. 8 streets are closed periodically during the convention. Atlanta commuter Charles Allman says morning rush hour traffic was a breeze, but
I don't know how surprised I'll be at 5:30 this afternoon when we start closing.
We are live in Chopper 2, high above afternoon rush hour traffic downtown near the Omni, and as you can see, no surprises here yet. Traffic seems to be flowing pretty smoothly, maybe more smoothly than normal because so many people took public transportation. I suppose Atlanta was ready for the convention after all, and who knows, maybe MARTA will be able to hang on to some of those new passengers. Back to you folks in the skybox in the Omni.
Thank you very much, Joyce Oscar. Now, for many of the delegates, footing it, you know, shoe leather is the way they're getting from here to there. And of course, some are taking MARTA, but still others are turning to cabs.
That's how I got home last night, sharing a taxi with some delegates from Massachusetts, eager, happy delegates from Massachusetts. They were on their way back to their hotel, and that's just the kind of business the cabbies were hoping for, as B.B. Emmerman tells us.
If this were any other day, this block of International Boulevard next to the Plaza Hotel would be lined up with cabs waiting for fares. But today was not any other day. It was the first day of the Democratic Convention, and taxi cabs were in big demand.
Let's go around the 4-zone, 3-zone, let that driver.
E.D. Simmons is the dispatcher for the Yellow Cab Company here in Atlanta. He says normally he gets maybe 500 calls in 8 hours. Today, he says, he doesn't have enough cabs to handle the business.
If I had the cabs in Capel, I could fill 1,500 calls in 8 hours. But as it is, I get 500-600.
Cabbies who work on their own without a dispatcher also say they have more business than they can handle. There had been some fear that the Democrats would be using limousines and chartered buses to get around, but that hasn't been the case. There have been plenty of fares to go around.
It's up 200%, you know? Yeah, 200%.
So how are you feeling?
I feel very good, you know? Yeah, I'm very, very excited. I'm looking forward to the rest of this week making a lot of money.
According to officials at the Atlanta Taxi Cab Bureau, since the Democrats started arriving, there have been a lot of reports of people leaving things in cabs, but only one complaint for overcharging. They attribute that good record to drivers making a special effort to keep their cabs clean and treat customers courteously. Of course, it helps to have motivation.
Very much more courteous when I'm making more money, you know? Yeah.
In downtown Atlanta, B.B. Emmerman, Channel 2 Action News.
We've had you introduced.
You know, party politics today made way for just plain party at the governor's mansion, as about 350 of the top donators for the Democratic Party all gathered to have some fun. Arlen Harrison says the mansion was simply oozing with Southern charm.